Welcome back to GEMS Podcast. I am the founder and host, Miss Genesis Amaris Kemp, and my guest with me today is Franky Corcoran. Corcoran.
Corcoran. Yep, there you
Corcoran.
go.
Yes. And thank you for helping me out there. And here's a bit about Franky. He is an actor, director, writer, and podcaster who runs a local community theater company called Corcoran Entertainment. The, bus- the business deals with not only theater, but perform video skits and remain active while podcasting and look for ways to further benefit the strong community established in Miramichi, New
Yep.
Brunswick. So, without further ado, please welcome Franky to the podcast.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. So, Franky, before we dive into your passion for entertainment as well as the theater work that you're doing currently, I definitely want to break the ice and have you share either a crazy thing that you did or a fun and interesting fact about yourself.
Fun. Oh, geez. Yeah. Wow. That's pretty interesting. So just interesting fact about myself. Oh, geez. There's lots of them that I could tell you. Yeah. No. Like there's there's many that come to mind. One. I guess you could say would be That's a great question. Kind of put on the spot almost. There's lots of things. That's one thing. That's one thing that I will say. That's for sure.
So, what would that one thing be? Like, just say the first thing that came to your mind that makes you interesting or that makes people think you're fun.
Oh well, I mean, I like to think that I have somewhat of a fun personality, and I mean, like, of course, if you're running a theater entertainment business, then that's one of the key qualities that you need to have about yourself is to be very very energetic and charismatic, and I like to think that I have some of those qualities, and they're as I said, they're very very important to the business that I'm in.
Awesome. And so I know you work at a hardware store full time, but it's not your passion. Your passion is really entertainment. And outside of that, you're also, driving your passion by being in the theater space. And part of that is your background on how you motivate yourself as well as entertain in general. So, why the need to still work at the hardware store? Can you make the transition to go work doing some doing something in theater?
I mean, that's definitely a possibility, but there's always the whole thing. It's maybe not like a expectation versus reality, but where I live in Miramichi, theater actually isn't quite as as popular as it is in other areas in my province. Like we don't really have like a set theater here. Like places in the province around here, like Fredericton, New Brunswick, or Moncton, New Brunswick, they always have like their own theater or their own their own venue. And so really Miramichi, there's nothing really here in terms of that. So while that would sound great and all, and pursuing that as a full-on career, that would be great. There also comes a point where you have to ask yourself, you're like, do I want to stay where I am right now and just do what I'm doing, work full time and then do this on the side? Or would I want to leave here where all my family and stuff like that is here and go off and do this? While that does sound great, there would be a part of me that would get a little homesick because I've kind of gotten a little used to where I am right now. So maybe somewhere down the line, but I mean, definitely for now, I'm certainly happy with what I'm doing now. I'm still able to do theater, and I'm still able to do this my own podcast, and also talk with people like you. And so yeah, I mean, like, it's definitely something that I have thought about before, but as of right now, as it currently stands, I think where I am right now is it keeps me happy. Anyway, that's one way to put it.
Well, as long as it keeps you happy. And the reason why I asked my question the way that I did, Frankie, is because I know you're very, very passionate about entertainment. And sometimes I hate to see when people are so passionate about something, but they make sacrifices due to monetary gain and they don't really fully tap into their entire passion because they have to work in a certain area, but that certain area is not complementing their passion spot. But it sounds like in your area, since you are in the province of New Brunswick, which is and then the city within that is Miramichi, they don't really have a big theater presence. So you're saying if you work at this hardware store, it still gives you the time to afford to tap into your passion by doing your podcast and the theater work. So when you are doing your theater work, what are some of the things inside your theater work that you like to focus on that bring you that joy and fulfillment?
Well, for me personally, and I first started out in theater with acting in high school. This would have been about almost 10 years ago now, which is just crazy to think that it's been that long. But so I first started off with acting, and then within recent years with COVID, and obviously it's hard to do plays when you're in the middle of a pandemic. So I kind of slowly shifted over to writing shows, and I got really, really interested in the whole, pretty well like the whole, yeah, exactly. There you go. The whole entirety of theater production as a whole: writing, directing, sound design, lighting, the whole thing. And so, there's always something about it though, where theater, there's always something in it for everybody. I've always loved that. I mean, like, there's so many people who I've talked to over the years where I'm like, drama is a really good place for you. And they'd always say, oh, but I can't act or I can't sing. It's like, so you don't have to act or sing. You know what I mean? Like, feel free to come on. There's lots that you can do, whether it's behind the scenes or it's writing a script or it's directing. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many opportunities in it for everybody, or even costumes. And so I think really that's the main thing that I love about it, is that it's such a collaborative process, and you get like just everybody comes. I'm like, all the local businesses can come in to help you out with like whatever you need in terms of advertising and selling tickets. And I mean, there might be sometimes where I feel like I don't give the Miramichi enough credit for how much theater we do have here. I mean, like, there certainly is theater. It's sometimes it's very easy for us to say that, oh, there's not enough here, there's not enough here, which there is. Just when you compare it to other cities in the province, it's kind of like, it's like, oh geez, it feels like there's nothing here. But we got a really strong, passionate community around here. And honestly, I think that's really the best thing about this whole thing, is when you're working with people who are so passionate. I really think that's the part that really excites me and really wants me to succeed. And it always brings me back. Like for some shows, some people might be like, that was fun, it just took a lot of energy out of me,
Yeah.
and so maybe I'll take this one off. But for me, it's like, okay, this one's done, let's go on to the next one. It just, there's always something to look forward to with it. So that's what I love the most about it, and that's what keeps bringing me back.
So when you think about Canada in general and the other provinces that are nearby New Brunswick, what are you all doing to kind of form a COE, which is a center of expertise or center of excellence in the theater community? Because even though y'all are in different provinces, I'm sure that you guys have different meetup groups or places where you could exchange ideas to really help one another advance in the theatrical space.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really, really good question. And it's not just here in Canada, but even over in the States. Like, I even talked to when I first started writing plays, it was with a course called Introduction to Playwriting, and it was taught by an award-winning film director and theater director, Paul Pedito. And so he's got a very strong, I'm like, no, that's a very good a good role model, and a very good he's really good in terms of, if I need a script, it don't matter where he is, he's like, yeah, just send it over to me, and I'd be happy to check it out. And so I mean, honestly, worldwide, I mean, not just in Canada, there's always somewhere where you can share your work. And or even, I mean, like, I've never actually done this myself, but I mean, like, if there's certain shows where it's like, hey, like, you can put out a casting call and you're in New Brunswick, someone in Alberta could see that and say, oh my God, they're doing a play over in New Brunswick and they're looking for so and so, and I think I'd be perfect for that, and that can draw people over there. So there's definitely lots of ways, and there's lots of like theater. New Brunswick is a big thing around here. They're always offering like workshops, and there's always opportunities for everybody in Canada, really, to spread their wings and to be involved. And so yeah, I'm just trying to think if there's anything else really in Canada in terms of, because it's really hard to give credit to just one in particular, because there's so many ways people can contribute and excel with each other's help. So but yeah, that would be the simple answer, I guess. I would say is that we do have a great support system all around us. Like, no matter where you go, there's always businesses. Like there's a playwriting consultancy, I think it's in Montreal, I believe. And
Okay.
so, like, you can send your stuff to them. And so there's really lots of ways, and that's really something to be proud of. It really makes me happy to be in this field.
So with all the expertise that is around Canada as a whole, and you all being able to, look for support within Canada, but also by tapping on people with the US, then you definitely see how you could take your craft and accelerate your craft and continue to learn and grow by the different classes that are being taught, the different webinars, and etc. So due to the pandemic, have you conducted any plays online? Since the world was shut down for a period of time, so people had to learn how to pivot in order to get their content out there.
I mean, for me personally, I never liked the whole idea of virtual productions. And I mean, that's just me. And I know there's lots of people who say that, oh, it's a great way to still do theater, even though we're living in a pandemic. But for me personally, it was always like theaters. There's something different when you're in an actual theater and and the lights and the audience and everything. It's, if you're watching a play online, it would be almost the equivalent of, yeah, I'm just going to watch a movie on Netflix. It's like anybody can do that, So I mean, I've definitely thought about it. There are times where I think about it, but then you also got to think about, okay, like, in terms of costs and all that. I mean, like, especially for my first production, I'm like, can I really rely on a virtual production if this is how I'm going to kickstart this company? Is going virtual really like the smartest business wise, I guess you could say? So I really have to also take that into consideration. But I mean, that's also why I started my podcast, as a way of okay, since we can't do plays, what else can we do to sort of get the Corcoran Entertainment name out there? So from the podcast, and we've also done some videos, and we got a couple more videos planned for the future that'll go on our social media. And that's been a great way to accommodate the constant changes sparked by the pandemic. And I mean, so I guess the simple answer to your question, that would be yes, I've considered it, but I mean, I have other ways, I guess you could say, of getting the word out there and keep busy with it, with dealing with the changes of this pandemic. And I mean, luckily things are kind of slowing down now. So we're luckily our first production is going to be in June. So luckily, it was supposed to be in October. Now it's going to be in June. COVID's been kind of all over the place, but even if the whole play thing doesn't work out, I'm happy the podcast is still going strong and the videos are still going strong. So there's definitely going to be something in it, no matter how much this pandemic changes things. But so yeah, it's definitely an option. It's just, for me personally, it's just not the way I would go about it. I would prefer to do a podcast or something else virtually, not a full length production. That's all.
Okay, fair enough. And thank you for sharing that, Frankie. And so let's jump into your podcast a bit. So start with giving us the foundation of your podcast, and when did you decide that it was time for you to start your podcast, to kind of put out the feelers to the world and let them know, hey, these are the topics I have, these are the guests that I'm looking for, and so forth.
Yeah, well, I first came up with the idea for it. I mean, I've always loved podcasts. I mean, as we all do. So I've always wanted to start one. I even talked about like years ago. I'd say to my friends, like, we should do a podcast. We should do a podcast. But the problem with that is that we never really had like a plan. It was just more so like, let's just do this for fun, and let's, we never had no plan in mind. It was just let's just get microphones and just talk all kinds of stuff and just put it out there and see who watches it, kind of thing. But the more I got thinking about it, and as I said, our first play was delayed to June, and it was around that time when it got delayed. I was kind of in that time. I was like, oh my gosh, like, what am I going to do now that, the plays postponed now? And at that time, I didn't know when I was going to be able to put it on, because things were just going so crazy with this pandemic. And so I went back to my podcast idea. I'm like, you know what if I turned, maybe not transform the whole company to a podcast, but what if I did a podcast for the company? And so since it's called Corcoran Entertainment, I thought, well, how about we do a podcast where it focuses on not just theater, but just entertainment as a whole. So like, we don't just because I mean, not everybody's into theater. So I thought this would be a great way for people who, not just like, I mean, like, of course we'd still talk about theater, but I mean, we'd also talk about what's new in movies and TV, and maybe talk about music, video games, there's anything in general. So basically how the format of the show is, basically we'd have a series of guests, or like, one guest per episode. And so the odd time we'll have one or two or three, maybe, just depending on the episode, who's available and stuff like that. So we'll talk with the guests for about, maybe say, 15-20 minutes, just about, hey, like, who are you, what do you do? If you're in theater, what's your background? If you're in film, what's your background? If you're not in any of those, just who are you? And so then afterwards we'll move into two main topics regarding anything in entertainment. So for example, one could be in an episode recently, the great Gilbert Gottfried had just passed away. So for example, that could be one topic where we just pay tribute to Gilbert Gottfried and all the laughs he's given us over the years. And then we move on to main topic number 2, which, for example, could be, I don't know, the whole Will Smith, Chris Rock thing, which has been, I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but I mean, it's kind of blowing up social media. It's been blowing up social media the last, it's probably going to still, people are still gonna be talking about it in like 2 years from now. But so, and then also, I also use it as a way, if there's anything local, like any events or markets or anything going on in the Miramichi or surrounding areas. I even put it out. We have this monthly magazine that's released in Miramichi, and I basically put out an article saying, listen, if you guys have any type of event that you want to talk about, if you want to come on the podcast, we can arrange an appearance. Or if you're too shy to go on, you can just give me the information about that, and I'll throw in almost like a advertisement to get the word out, and just say, hey, so and so is doing a barbecue or whatever, feel free to drop by, it's at this date. So it's also a way people can listen to what's new in entertainment and hear everyone's thoughts. But then also, if there's events going on in Miramichi or anywhere in New Brunswick, that's also a great way to spread the word about that, and just say, hey, so before we continue, there's a comedy show going on here at this time at this place, so feel free to drop by there. Tickets are this many dollars. So just a great way to also help the community, and maybe just take people out of the whole, the world's kind of crazy nowadays with everything going on. So it's all, podcasts have always been one of those, like, you know what, let me just shut my brain off. Let me just go for a drive. Let me just lay down, just pop in my headphones and just listen to a podcast for a bit. Like that's the best way to describe it, I guess, is to also just take people out of the craziness of the world, and also to just hear, like, hey, like, what's new in entertainment, and what do they think about Will Smith or Chris Rock? You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So there's two different approaches that you use with your podcast. You're talking about entertaining news and stories that are taking place in Canada or around the globe to just bring that overall awareness to your community, or someone who may be in the entertaining sector where they could come on and share their knowledge and expertise within your community. So two different parts there. And how long have you been podcasting, Franky?
I've been podcasting since January. I started because I first announced that the podcast was going to be happening in about September-ish or so. But then from September to about December, I've been working with some funding with some local nonprofit organizations around here to kind of get the equipment and all that stuff like that. So it definitely, I'm like, some people say, oh, podcast can't be that hard. You just grab a microphone and do this. I'm like, well, no, there's a lot more to it. Figure out like, okay, what's my format going to be? Who's my audience? And how am I going to get my equipment and all that. So definitely happy with how far it's come. So luckily we're about 14 episodes in now at the time of this recording, and plenty more to come. So it's going strong, and hope it goes on for the foreseeable future.
Well, congratulations on your podcast and, just putting your content out there. I think podcasting is totally fun, and you never know who you're going to meet. And I always tell people, just shoot your shot when it comes to pitching for guests to come inside your community, as well as for you to be a guest in other people's community, because it's all about collaboration. And I like to say collaboration is not the new competition. Collaboration is the new way of synergies. So, Franky, as we begin to wind down, because I want to be respectful of our time commitment, I want you to leave the listeners and viewers with your call to action for this segment.
My call to action. Oh, let me see. Almost put on the spot again. What would you say is a good example? Like I'm just trying to think how I can.
So normally when it comes to a call to action, it is an action step that my guest wants my listeners and viewers to do, whether it is set up a discovery call with them, go check out their podcast, follow them on social media. Those are just a few examples.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm just kind of thinking through. So, I mean, you guys can feel free to follow us on our social media. We have our Facebook page, Corcoran Entertainment, Instagram at Corcoran ENT, TikTok at Corcoran Entertainment, and you can feel free to check out new episodes of the Corcoran Entertainment Show every Tuesday on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Just trying to think what else. Anybody listening who's in the Miramichi or surrounding areas, you can catch our evening of one acts at the Beaverbrook Kin Center on June 10th to 11th. Tickets are $15, and it's also a dessert theater. So you will be able to have some dessert with the serving of your choice: apple crisp, blueberry grunt, or carrot cake. So just feel free to text or call 506-624-3315, or send me an email at fcorcoran10@yahoo.com. Oh, and it's a great evening of two one-act plays written by me. So I think you're in for a good time. And just if you're in the area, or depending on where you are around the globe, I promise I'll try and make it worth your while. So
Awesome.
So I think that's pretty well it.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that information, Franky. Make sure you send me all of the information that you may not have sent me, but I will definitely plug your website and the other information that I have on your show notes, so they could definitely connect with you. And I was going to ask one more question before we wrap up. So for those people who are going to see your 2 acts 1 play live, is there a component that you can stream it for those who are not in the Miramichi, New Brunswick area?
No, unfortunately not right at the moment yet anyway. The thought has crossed my mind, but I'm not ready to commit to anything yet, because I mean, like, budgetary reasons and all that. So I guess the simple answer would be not right now. That would be
okay. Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Franky, for coming on and being a guest on today's podcast. For those of you listening and viewing, make sure you subscribe and share GEMS podcast. We are on 40 plus platforms. Also connect with us on YouTube at GEMS with Genesis Amaris Kemp for all things video content. And lastly, but not least, we are ranked in the top 3% globally out of 2.8 million podcasts per www.listennotes.com. So you can become a brand sponsor and share the same ranking space with me by heading on over to Genesis Amaris Kemp to find out how to be a sponsor as well as a brand ambassador. So until we chat next time, peace, love, and lots of blessings. Go out there and do something entertainment. We're all entertainers, but what type of entertainment do you want to put out in the world? And is it going to leave an imprint in order to drive an impact? And if so, embrace your inner creativity via entertainment.